And welcome to the second ever episode of Mevey's Marvelous Meals. I am so excited to see all of you back this week. So what we will be making today are zucchini fries with the dill mayo dipping sauce. I love zucchini fries because not only are they super delicious and easy to make, they use everybody's favorite squash, zucchini, which we have a great abundance of here in Quebec. Let's get into it. Before we can start cooking, we've got to make sure we have all of our bases covered. So, if you have long hair, make sure it's tied up. If you've got an apron, go ahead and put it on. And most important of all, make sure that your hands are very clean and all washed up, because hygiene is important in cooking and no one wants bacteria in their food because that would be gross. So, let's move on to the next step. The next step before we can start cooking is making sure we have all of our ingredients. Now you may be asking yourself, how will we do that since none of them are really labeled? It's quite simple. With your recipe sheet, you should also have an extra piece of paper with numbers and words on them. You'll also notice that all of your little containers and bags are numbered. So what you're going to do is take that number and associate it to what you think it is, until there are none left in the list. Once you're done that, we're going to move on to our fresh ingredients. The second question below that, you'll see that there are numbers and lines next to them. Take a look at what you have on your table or in your box and write down all the fresh ingredients you can see on one of those lines until every line is full. And then you'll know exactly what you have. But if you are having a hard time, don't hesitate to look at your recipe sheet to see what is in the recipe. So, good luck. Now that we're ready to start cooking and we know that we have all of our ingredients, we can move on to our first step. So for this, you're going to need a cutting board, a knife, your 4 zucchinis, and a plate. Since we will be using a knife for this step, I recommend an adult takes over. And to be very, very careful not to cut yourself and be responsible and aware of the people around you. What we will be doing for this step is cutting our zucchini into fry-like pieces, like so. Once you have all 4 of your zucchinis cut up into fry-like pieces, you can put them on a plate and set them aside. And we're ready to move on to our next step. Before we can move on to our second step, let's go preheat our oven to 425 Fahrenheit. Okay, now we can move on to the second step of our recipe. For this, you will need a large mixing bowl, a measuring cup, and a way to measure tablespoons and teaspoons. And your breadcrumbs, grated Parmesan, dried basil, garlic powder, salt, and pepper. First, we're going to measure out 2 cups of panko breadcrumbs into our bowl. There you go. Next, we're going to be measuring out 1 cup of grated Parmesan and adding it to the bowl. There you go. Now, we're going to be adding in 2 tablespoons of dried basil. Next, we're going to be adding in 2 tablespoons of our garlic powder. Next, we're going to add in 2 teaspoons of salt. The last ingredient for our breading is now 2 teaspoons of pepper. 1 and 2. Now, all that's left to do is mix everything up with your hands until it is well combined. Now, we can set this aside and move on to our next step. We can go to the third step of our recipe. For this step, you will need your 4 eggs, a shallow bowl or dish, and a fork or whisk. All you need to do is crack your 4 eggs into your bowl, and 4, and whisk them all together. Once your eggs are completely homogeneous, we can move on to the next step of our recipe, which is breading and putting our zucchini sticks onto the pan. So for this, you are going to need a pan that is either lightly greased or covered in parchment paper, your breadcrumb mixture, your eggs, and your zucchinis. The way to bread zucchini sticks is to first dip them in your egg mixture, and then roll them in your breading mixture until they are generously coated. Next, place them onto your parchment paper and repeat with the rest of your fries. Now that all of our zucchini sticks are fully breaded and placed onto our baking sheet, we can start cooking them. These will need to bake for 15 to 20 minutes and be flipped halfway through. It's very important to remember to flip them or they will burn. While our zucchini sticks are baking, we can go ahead and make our sauce. So for the sauce, you'll need your mayonnaise, your dill weed, your garlic, your lime or lemon, your pepper, a shallow bowl, measuring spoons, a knife, and a cutting board. The first step is to put 1 cup of mayonnaise into our bowl. Once our mayonnaise is added in, we can add 2 tablespoons of dill weed. There you go. Once you've added in your dill weed, we can now add in 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. The next ingredient we'll be adding in is 2 to 3 cloves of garlic, finely minced or squished. Once your garlic is finely minced, you can just add it straight to your sauce. And the final ingredient for our sauce is a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. Now, all that's left to do is to mix everything together and you're done. Once it's done, your sauce should look a little something like this. And now it should be about time to flip over our zucchini sticks. Now all we have to do is flip over our zucchini sticks. So just use a spatula to turn them all over to the opposite side. If you notice that the filling is sticking to the other side of the pan, feel free to just sprinkle a little more on. Once all of your zucchini sticks have been flipped over, just put them back in the oven to bake for the remainder of the time. So, once your cooking time is done and you've taken your zucchini sticks out of the oven, be sure to turn it off and then we can get to plating. So, all you need to do is take your spatula and transfer your zucchini sticks onto a plate. Just like so. Now that we're all done cooking, we have to finalize our activity by cleaning up. Now, as you know if you joined me last week, a big part of my cleaning up is bringing the compost to the chickens. So I'll ask you again, would you like to go see? Okay, let's go. So this brings us to the end of the second episode of Mevey's Marvelous Meals. I hope you had fun, made good food, and to see you next week. Bye-bye!